Hey guys, welcome back. BTCR here. We're back with our weekly recap of all things Injustice. It is the week of April 24th, 2025. Current challenge is Batman Ninja Batman. It is a 1-week repeat. Required characters are Catwoman, Nightwing, and Batman, who are available in the store as cheaply as bronze, and gold. His passive is Ninja Rising. There's 3 parts to it. When outnumbered, Batman receives 50% less damage and is immune to life drain. Batman Ninja teammates get plus 20% critical chance, and all teammates gain plus 50% power generation from critical hits. He's got 1300 attack and 1500 health. He was last available April 11th, 2024. Alright, he's got high stats. He's actually got the same base stats as Batman Ninja Lord Joker, but reversed. So his is 1300 and 1500, and Ninja Lord Joker is 1500 and 1300. I'd rather it was in the attack that it was higher, but it's high enough. Who's going to quibble? I think these are among the highest gold stats of any gold characters. So I love his name. The fact that he's Batman Ninja Batman. He is very much like Arrow, Green Arrow. Batman Ninja Batman is so much Batman. He's so Batman that it has to be in his name twice, which means he's only 1/3 ninja. A lot of times when you see Batman Ninja Batman, he's geared as a tank to take advantage of the first part of his passive to take 50% less damage when outnumbered. And if you used a combination of Gingold, Soda, Killer Croc Companion Gear, and Batman Ninja Helmet, that would make him an invulnerable tank when he's outnumbered and has power. Which is fine as far as it goes, but if you gear him like that, it misses out on the best part of him, which isn't even his passive, and in order to take advantage of that passive, you are required to be outnumbered, so you gotta be losing. And at the point where you are tied or winning, then yeah, that goes out the window. So let's look at the rest of his passive. Sure, getting a free 20% crit chance for Batman Ninja teammates, pretty good. Teammates getting more power when dealing critical hits, also very good. But that's only for his basic attacks. The best part of him is his special 2. His special 2, it stuns at the start, doing a tiny bit of damage, and then finishes with the largest amount of damage after the stun. And it comes as a single hit after that. So that means he can do a lot of damage when he's using Cloak of Destiny or Necron Scythe or both. Now, one of the problems with his special 2 is the same as for other late stage Injustice characters, and it's that only the last hit can knock out an opponent. And it sort of matters for Batman Ninja Batman, but it doesn't matter that much because his special 2 is set up to have almost all the damage on the last hit anyway. For practical purposes, he probably wouldn't be knocking out opponents much, even if he didn't have this limitation, except on his last hit. Now, if you're using Batman Ninja Batman with a Tattoo Totem loadout, and if the opponent has a revive, you're not going to be able to get your power back from Tattoo Totem because you're not knocking them out, which means you need to tag out and reset to get power again, which is what we'll talk about a bit more with his other limitation. Because typically, if you're going to be doing excessive damage against an opponent in front of you, excessive meaning, way more than you need to knock them out, it's more useful if you can spread that damage to the rest of the opponent's team. I mean, it's fun to do that kind of max damage in and of itself, but it doesn't help your fight unless you're doing splash damage or Enchantress Companion Gear maybe. The most common way of doing this is to use Fourth World Godly Mace, which is 15% splash damage. And you compare that to some signature gears that can give 20% splash damage. So it's, maybe not as good. But when you can do like really a lot of excessive damage, it's nothing to sneeze at. But you'll see, we're not actually doing that here. He's got Tattoo Totem Master's Death Cart to power him up. Yes, 2 bars of power when he tags in, basically. And the last time we used this team, the last time we demonstrated him in a weekly recap, we used Cloak of Destiny as his 3rd gear to take advantage of that special 2 stun. Unfortunately, there's only 3 gear slots, because if we had a 4th one, we would use it for doing splash damage. And since we don't have a 4th one, it seems like it's a bit of a waste to do so much damage each time if none of it gets passed on to the next opponent. If it really just hits the opponent, it's just wasted. It just knocks them out and that's it. And in almost all cases it is. The one exception would be when you're facing a Red Sun Green Lantern team, and because your special won't crit, even when you're facing Red Sun Green Lantern, Batman often can do enough damage to knock him out. So, I mean, part of that is that despite Red Sun Green Lantern's passive and no stun, it won't prevent the stun if it's in the middle of a special. So Batman does get the stun with the boosted damage if you're using Cloak, but it doesn't crit. Still good. In the team that you're seeing, in the scenario you're watching, our third gear is Enchantress Companion, which is a universal solution for any characters who can only knock out an opponent with their special 2 in the last hit. The nice surprise, though, is how much damage Batman Ninja Batman still does. Because he's max augmented with 50% crit chance, Tantu Totem gives a 30% crit chance, and his passive gives the last 20%. He will always crit on his special 2, and you'll see in the footage, the last hit is consistently well over 200,000 damage when unblocked. Not a lot of characters that can stand up to that. So what we've done with Enchantress Companion Gear, it's a much better solution because let's face it, he's 1 gear slot away from being unstoppable because he needs 4 gear slots, really. He needs 2 gear slots to start with 2 bars of power. That's Tantu Totem Master's Death Cart. He needs 1 gear slot to boost stun damage on special 2. That's either Cloak of Destiny or Necron Scythe. And then he needs 1 gear slot to share that special 2 damage. And that could be Fourth World Godly Mace or Enchantress Companion Gear. You can replace either Tantu Totem or Master's Death Cart with Batgirl on your team to give that bar power, but that's only good once in a fight. And if your team, if somebody on the other team revives, if you just don't knock them out, you don't get your power back, then you're going to have to tag them back in and out a bunch, and it really slows down your fight. I mean, the alternative would be you could use New 52 Wonder Woman. You could try that. But it means that you've got 2 stars on your team instead of 1. And New 52 Wonder Woman will be doing most of the damage if you're relying on her passive because you're going to be giving her Tantu Totem Master's Death Card. On this team, we've left out Cloak and Necron Scythe because his special 2 already does enough damage. That's really sort of the revelation that I've had playing with him this week. Enchantress in some ways can be better than splash damage because it does damage on the next person tagging in, the next opponent tagging in, and protects you from tagging effects. Or if the opponent revives, it buys you time to tag out Batman and reset for his power. The skulls may be enough to knock out the opponent after they revive, but on our team, it gives Rebirth Raven an opportunity to steal the opponent's power. So that's Enchantress Companion Gear. Splash damage, the maximum splash damage you'll get is against a full 3-member opponent. Once you start knocking them out, it does less and less. So Enchantress Companion Gear, the skulls, don't get any weaker during the fight. They just still come the same way. So even if the opponent has reverse power drain, the skull will lock out their special temporarily disable their passive, even though that's not what it says. That is what it does in practice. So we can still drop a special before they can if we tag in Rebirth Raven and they get power, but we also get it. And then we just have the advantage of being able to do a special while they're still locked out. The last team where we stacked the Cloak of Destiny and Necron Scythe on Batman Ninja Batman, he was able to do 800,000 damage. With just a Cloak, it was only just over 400,000, but with neither of them, we're still getting mostly over 250,000, way more than we need. The bigger limitation of a special 2, I think, is that the high damage hit after the stun is not ranged. It will often completely miss, and that's all the damage. I mean, not all the damage, that's where the high damage part of it comes from. Since the first hit has longer range, you run into that problem where the first 1 or 2 low damage hits will connect, which means you don't get your power back, but you don't get this massive damage at the end of special 2, which is what you really want. So that means there's one thing that you need to plan for if you're using Batman Ninja Batman, and that's against an opponent who already has power, because you may not be able to do a special 2 quickly. And this team is built for him to be a special 2 specialist. So you need to plan around tagging in Batman Ninja Batman against an opponent with power. Not the worst, but it's part of what keeps this from being really overpowered. All right, that's week 52 for our challenge. Since the end of the 4-year repeating challenge cycle, we are still in uncharted territory. There are still 12 more missing challenge characters that may potentially be put into the schedule. We've had, I want to say, 11 of the missing challenge characters that came back right at the beginning of the cycle. If things go like we think they're going to go, next week is going to be Rebirth Raven. Then there will be one more of the old challenge characters, 8th of May, Classic Scorpion. And so that's the latest we'll find out is the 15th of May. What's going to happen? Are we going to cycle back to this current cycle, which started off with Gaslight Batman? Are we going to be losing the missing challenge characters that just came now and disappeared again, and we'll get Red Sun Green Lantern? Or is something going to happen before Classic Scorpion? If there's someone not asleep at the wheel who might be putting those missing challenge characters back, we will see. Something will happen by May the 15th at the latest, and hopefully we'll find out something sooner. Because if we find out something sooner, it means there's more stuff happening. Okay. This week's multiplayer reward is Soultaker Sword, which starts off as Ancient Katana. There is, when maxed out, a 30% unblockable chance on basic attacks, a 50% life drain chance on special 2, and when evolved, there's a 15% damage drain from defeated enemies, which stacks twice. This was last available in August 8th, 2024. So this is the weird thing. So if there is still a pattern, next week could be maybe Master's Death Cart or Rebirth Wally West. And the reason why this is so weird is that we've had the first deviation in years for the challenge. March 13th, it was supposed to be Soultaker Sword. It skipped. The second deviation was March 27th, when it should have been Flashpoint Deathstroke, and it skipped. This is the third deviation, but instead of skipping something, they brought back Soultaker Sword out of order. So if Soultaker Sword is just being inserted, then we should have Master's Death Cart. If Soultaker Sword is replacing Master's Death Cart for this week, and it's skipping Master's Death Cart because of that, then Rebirth Wally West is going to be next week. So lots of stuff. Lots of minutiae for the people who are really paying attention. It probably doesn't matter to most people, but it's just interesting to me that there's so many kind of minor changes. So let's talk about the gear itself. It's a good piece of legendary gear. The damage drain is unique and can be really useful. In some cases, I'd almost say irreplaceable during the later stages of Survivor, when the opponents have a huge damage stat that lets you drain it with Soultaker Sword, and a huge health stat that needs to be taken down. And that's where the damage stat helps. It's a strategy when you're playing Survivor to scaling up to stronger opponent, very much like damage over time. And before some of the newer strategies that can take advantage of Aquaman's Atlantean Hero, stacking damage over time, Soultaker Sword was maybe the single most important piece of gear if you want to get past those late stages in Survivor. So I think with slightly different strategies, it's not nearly as necessary. The issue with the gear, I think, is that outside of Survivor, it's okay. Maybe not really legendary. When you take it outside of Survivor, the best part is actually the unblockable chance. There's only 2 other gears that offer unblockable chance to all characters, which is Massive Sharpened Teeth, which has only 20%. Custom Rifle, which is only 11%, and you compare that to 30% here. There are lots of character-specific ones, like Mutated Bone Spikes will let you get unblockable attacks if you've got it on Doomsday, Knife Collection on Solomon Grundy, Hyperspeed Plated Suit for Flash, Eskrima Sticks for Nightwing, Martian Hunter Garb for Martian Manhunter, but they're only good for those character skins. And so that is the best ability, I think, if you're actually going to take advantage of it, is the unblockable chance. Life Drain and Special 2, I mean, it's only 50%. LexCorp Chestplate. It's not a unique ability, and LexCorp Chestplate has 100% chance. So that's just, giving it some context. So outside of Survivor, the damage drain makes really not much difference against opponents that have damage close to yours. And the other two abilities aren't attractive enough, for us at least, to use in our typical loadout. The reason why damage drain isn't that useful in regular play is how closely you're matched to your opponents. If you get 15% for each defeated enemy, and at most you've got 2 enemies, right? Even if it didn't have the limitation that stated there, at most you're getting, 30% combined damage drain. And if they have similar stats, you're basically boosting your own damage by about 30%. And that is really nothing compared to a 70% basic damage boost of your own damage that you can get from the very beginning of the fight with a lot of different 3.5-star gears. Now, you could make the argument that it's boosting your specials, and that's fair because the special boosting gears don't actually give you a high percentage. But I've never been a big fan of those special boosting gears anyways. But yeah, okay, so I will acknowledge boosting both basic and special damage, it's not bad. It doesn't feel like it's really shifting the gameplay and the balance of the fight very often when I've tried this. So if your opponent's damage is a lot more than yours, the problem with that is the chance of you being able to use the one guy with the Soultaker sword to knock them out is pretty small. But when you're in Survivor, you're very motivated to do that. And in other fights, it's just a lot more difficult. Because of the way, there's just so many better options, and it's in Survivor that there's that big an imbalance between your stats and your opponent's stats. So yeah, it's not a bad gear. It's very much a very specific situation that it's useful. Okay, let's take a look at the store. Rebirth Raven Early Access Pack. It's available for $12.99 Canadian. The only currency that matters. It's included next week's challenge, corroborating included next week's challenge. It does not come with credits, and it's priced accordingly. It does not unlock Rebirth Raven in your store, so keep that in mind, especially since she's probably going to be there next week. The other new pack in the store is Character Bundle Batman vs. Superman. It's $24.99. It was $18.99 when it was first introduced way back when in December 2020. Comes with Dawn of Justice Batman, Dawn of Justice Superman, and you get the special Dawn of Justice gears instead of the regular ones, which makes it maybe a little bit more interesting and a bit more attractive. Arkham Pack 1, second week, we talked about a bit more last week. And that's it for newish stuff. Everything else has been around for years. Phantom Zone is finished. This is the first week that it's finished. Next week is going to be another break, and it's probably going to be back the week of May the 8th. Fight 62 is still broken. Last weekend's breakthrough for golds was Killer Croc, Harley Quinn, and Martian Manhunter. This coming weekend is probably Hawkgirl, Green Lantern, and Lobo. Link in the description to a thread in the Injustice Mobile subreddit from Devlin16 that goes over the complete breakthrough cycle. And as far as the current glitches go, we go into a lot more detail every time something significant changes, which, spoiler alert, did not happen this week. However, even if nothing changes, we still do a more detailed review once a month, the first week of every month. Most recently, that was our recap from April the 3rd, 2025. You can also see a video tutorial for every working glitch in our playlist, Current Working Glitches, linked in the description of this video. The only thing probably worth mentioning is that the challenge reset glitch has been confirmed to be working on this week's Batman Ninja Batman challenge. Okay, that's it. So this is where we like to give a big thank you to our patrons on Patreon. That is Michael Devries, Irvin, Ruiz, Hoshi127, Nora Klimek, and Miguel, who are supporting us on the credited level. And a big thank you to you for watching and listening. We'll see you next time. Komoda.